doing the technical change. Welcoming you to our session on Future Cities, Developing Sustainable Urban Areas in Asia. I would like to invite our panelists to please take their seats in front. Precious, no, Alvin, Miss Shanshan Lee, Roland Haas, and Shaquille. If you could take your place first in front, and Eric.
It's not changing. It's not. I don't know. It's okay. It's all.
Thank you. I'd like to check first the temperature. We've adjusted the room temperature. Is it now more comfortable for everyone? If it gets warmer, please let me know. So just be comfortable while we set up. Thank you, panelists, for indulging us and sitting where everyone can see you and everyone would listen to you, I hope. So again, welcome. To give you the context of our discussion and presentations today and our discussion to follow, I would like to call on Ms. Precious Benjamin of Clean Air Asia to give you an overview of this session.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking part in our session, which is entitled Future Cities, Developing Sustainable Urban Areas in Asia. As mentioned by Joy, I'm Precious Benjamin, Environment Researcher from Clean Air Asia, and I'm just going to deliver a very short presentation to provide the context, to set the session up, hopefully. Hopefully I can do it successfully, but if not, I have very good speakers following me, so no pressure on my part. All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit, sorry, can I please request people to move to the front so that it's easier for new people to just sit at the back. Can I ask people to move to the front, please? No takers? Okay, maybe later. So. I just wanted to talk a little bit first about an initiative that we started implementing in 2016 called the Cities for Clean Air. So it's a program, it's an initiative for cities which provides international recognition for actions that they are taking to address air quality, air pollution. But at the same time, it provides guidance for them to make targeted and informed decisions. And finally, the initiative also serves as a platform for facilitating learning opportunities and also collaboration with stakeholders among the cities that are participating in it. No, I'm sorry. And so I just want, we put in this slide because it's the entry point for how we formulated the session. Well, one of the many entry points actually, because Clean Air Asia is working with cities a lot. But just some more background on this. So as I mentioned, we piloted this in 2016, the last BAQ, and we actually completed the pilot phase just this year with the 3 cities. So these are Baguio, Iloilo, and Santa Rosa in the Philippines, and I believe representatives of these cities are also here in the audience. So thank you very much for coming. And so just a little, some more background, just in case people have already heard about it. This was previously a certification scheme. So we had a voluntary standard in place for the certification, and cities that comply to this voluntary standard would be provided certification. But then during the course of implementation, we decided to move to more of an award scheme, but still retaining the structure, the actions that we were asking cities to do. So these actions involve a set of, we have a set of 6 actions, and these are based, if you have attended our previous session on the Integrated Better Air Quality Program, Integrated Better Air Quality in Asia program, the actions are based on the on the guidance framework and on the air quality management framework as a whole. So the actions that we ask cities to do would be to engage people to take action, put in the appropriate institutional coordination mechanisms, engage various stakeholders in air quality management, and then the next set of actions would be to promote a science-based, evidence-based approach to air quality management, using existing air quality information to be able to understand the status of air quality in the city, and use also this data to be able to engage and communicate with their stakeholders. And then the last set of actions would be to actually implement measures to address priority sources in their city. So through the course of the implementation, we still had this, overarching goal in mind that we wanted to mainstream air quality management into development planning. So very much the approach that we are taking in all of our programs and activities. And through the course of implementing the Cities for Clean Air certification and also other projects, so we identified a few roadblocks to this goal. And this included, we were able to identify some, but I think obviously this list is not exhaustive. So first is the compartmentalization of air quality management duties into the Environment Agency, which would in some ways not encourage other agencies to be able to also to take part in the conversation and identify their roles in AQM. Another roadblock would be to the challenge of aligning the programs and activities of different city agencies, as these would have different programs and projects already in place at the start of the year. Sometimes they're not really able to coordinate well and be able to match the activities that they are planning. And so it also has implication in terms of just being able to have a better integrated approach on addressing air quality. The third would be in terms of having a method for prioritizing the measures that the city would take. So being able to account for the different benefits of a single measure. So not just, so our entry point is really on air quality, on improving air quality, but we also, in order to be able to prioritize measures, other benefits on the economic and the social side also need to be considered, and sometimes these are not being quantified, and so it also has an effect on which measures are being prioritized. And then the last one, which I put in italics because it's more of a bigger issue, not just in the air quality management scheme, but in general. So for some, in the Philippines, and I'm not, maybe in a few other Asian countries, there is a lack of integrated planning system. And so if this is the case, so where do we anchor the Clean Air Action Plan to? So it's a much more broader discussion, the fourth roadblock. And so going over this, we hope that some of these issues can be somehow discussed or touched upon during the discussions that we will be having this afternoon. So the session objective is generally straightforward. So we wanted to take this conference, so organize we wanted to take the opportunity that this conference presented to be able to have a platform for practitioners and experts, implementers, to be able to discuss how to mainstream air quality management, with emphasizing that we contextualize the solutions within the challenges that cities face. The term mainstreaming air quality management is really well, it's used over and over again, I know, but it's just that because we have a lot of a very really good attendance in the conference in terms of our experts in different fields, and also quite a number of city representatives who are attending the conference. So we thought that it would be good to just put everyone together in the same room and just try to grapple with this challenge that we are facing. And so with that, I think this is my last slide. Yes. Thank you very much, and I turn you over to Joy.
Okay, thank you, Precious. So the next 45 minutes, we'll hear from our panelists who will share some solutions or some activities that they've already been involved with or are going to begin. And hopefully later, not hopefully, but later we will also invite 2 city representatives who can share their experience on making their cities more livable and healthier for their people. So first, we go to our panelists. First to speak on mainstreaming low-carbon development, examples from Urban Pathways, is Mr. Alvin Mejia from the Wuppertal Institute.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to see everyone here. I'll be sharing, my task today is to share with you some of the activities that the Weir Pathways initiative is doing globally. This initiative is working with, I think, more than 20 cities worldwide in terms of supporting low-carbon plans for basic urban services and how they can contribute to the implementation of the new urban agenda, the Paris Agreement, and the Sustainable Development Goals. So the activities involved capacity building, assessment of at country, city level, city-to-city partnership, exchange of good practices and standards, local implementation concepts, and looking at the different sectors of energy, mobility, and resources as well. So if you go to the website, so I've put the website here, there's a lot of fairly updated 2018 resources in terms of topics on energy, mobility, and resources. You can also see there the different training activities that are being done globally. And also looking further into policy environmental studies, project scopings for the partner cities, as well as funding solutions. And there's also a component on actually having pilot projects, which would provide more information in terms of doing more bankable investment programs for these once these are finished. I'll be sharing several slides on, I guess, the main takeaways that the initiative have had in terms of working with the cities, coming up with the policy assessments for several of these cities with regards to mainstreaming low-carbon developments. So the first one is really ensure the compatibility with the economic growth, I guess, also in terms of packaging. This would be consistent to more sustainable economic growth pathways, and this is a prosperous pathway today. So for example, in Belo Horizonte in Brazil, the guidelines formulated for the environmental management of the municipality takes into consideration short, medium, long-term actions. It is guided by the official greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan, which complies with the city development planning goals, and also guided by data, by their GHG inventories. We also see that another component for mainstreaming is really looking at the complementarity of the plans. Low-carbon plans generally would have to interact with other sector-specific plans, which are meant to bring forth structural changes, reducing emissions as well as realizing other benefits. So in Malacca, Malaysia, the Green City Action Plan that targets the transformation of the city towards a low-carbon city one. It takes into consideration the development of a comprehensive energy plan, a comprehensive transportation plan, as well as a awareness-raising campaign for waste emissions reduction. So different components, different dimensions. We cannot undermine the importance of stakeholder awareness and involvement. It's generally difficult to sell the carbon storyline sometimes, But we need to package it in a way that we do constant and progressive awareness raising. That's where the whole concept of co-benefits also played. Yeah, stakeholder involvement, we look at the maximization of resources and leveraging the strengths of each one. And we also need to influence cultures. A lot of the measures sometimes may face opposition, for example, for different transportation projects. A couple of examples in Suva in Fiji. City council encouraging residents to compost food peelings, grass cuttings by subsidizing some of the compost bins. In Addis Ababa, doing some partnerships with international investors to establish a waste-to-energy plan. Vertical coordination of policies, linking and packaging policies towards the generation of synergies, co-benefits between measures, including linking greenhouse gas reduction goals with other sustainable development goals. So it's really a more integrated approach from the national, subnational, and local levels. For example, in Haiphong, Vietnam, the local government policies are connected with the corresponding national strategies, like the National Green Growth Strategy, as well as the adherence to a spatial master plan, which is also coordinated at the national level. I guess in terms of considering stability and continuity when we develop these plans looking towards into the future, we need to have at least take that into consideration. You know, changes in people, changes in administration sometimes would tend to influence or impact the actual fruition of the plan. So at least take this into consideration. It's a must, I guess. I just leave you with, I think it's 9 C's in terms of the core concepts: compatibility, complementarity, consultations, capacity, capital, communications, coordination, co-benefits, continuity. The actions we do, like inform, inspire, initiate, and implement. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. There's a quiz. You have to memorize the 9 C's and the 4 I's. In order. So, yeah, thank you very much, Alvin. Our next speaker comes from the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, Ms. Shan Lee. She will talk about integrated urban planning and transportation along BRT corridor.
I think tackling the air pollution starts from saving energy, starting from changing the temperature of the room. Okay, nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Li Shanshan from ITDP, the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. Today, I'm going to share with you the 8 principles of integrated urban planning and transportation along BRT corridors. Actually, these 8 principles is not fit for BRT corridors, but also suited for metro and rail corridors. The core of integrated urban planning and transportation is to shift more people from driving to use public transport and to walking and cycling, and then to tackle the climate change and to alleviate air pollution. Walking is the most important principles for the integrated urban planning and transportation. So develop a walkable neighborhood is the first priority. This is the BRT corridor of one of the medium-sized cities in China, Yichang BRT, and it just opened 2015. We removed the we removed the parking here and to build a walkable and a nice, enjoyable environment for walking. So this attract more people walking to the transit stations and also attract more people to use the public transport. So providing a safe, accessible, and comfortable walkway to connect the transit station is the most important issues. We have bike lanes along the BRT corridor. You can see the infrastructure is here. I think this is common in many cities in developing countries. We have the infrastructure, but cycling on these bikeways is just terrible, and you are bumping all the time. This is quite common, and we think we need the quantity. We want the kilometers of bike lane. Yes, here it is, we have it, but the quality is just terrible. So we need to build not only continuous, but also we need to build convenient or comfortable bike lanes along the corridor. We are very proud of our Guangzhou BRT corridor, but this we need to avoid in the future projects. Once we have walking and cycling infrastructure, we need to create the network. So we use this level of service to evaluate how good of the network is. So this is super good because the actual walking distance is equal to the direct distance. So this is the BRT system we built in Yichang, and this is BRT stations. People who live here will feel lucky, but actually they don't, because this is direct distance from their home to the station, but they actually need to walk 5 or 6 times of the direct distance. So provide a short walkway or cycling network to connect the transit is crucial for us. The high quality public transport is the foundation of a transit corridor. I would like to introduce the Guangzhou BRT corridor. I guess many of you have seen these photos or known the corridor. It's a system carried almost 1 million passengers daily, and it provides services to many low and medium income communities. In the next photo, I would like to show it provides services to this urban village. The term for urban village, it means this village is rural village before, but because of the urbanization of Guangzhou, so it becomes in the center of the city. But its mixed use is high density. And here lived more than 100,000 migrant workers. They are low and medium income communities. 85 of them rely on this BRT to commute. So we are providing services to mixed use and to mixed income communities. We're providing high residential and high job density next to the transit station, just to support high quality public transit and support local services and also public activities. So here, our BRT corridor, lots of the high residential or high job density development are around the stations. So people can easily walk to the station, take public transit to commute. And we encourage new developments located into the urban area or next to the urban area, or have a very convenient transportation to travel to the city. So just create regions that can have short transit commutes. And the last one is we need to regulate parking and road use along the corridor. This is the Yichang BRT corridor. We removed all the car parkings. They are occupied the walkway and the bike lane before, but once we built the BRT corridor, we reduced 400 parking space along the corridor and changed it to continuous walkway and cycling. So these 8 principles is the core to shift people from driving and use more sustainable public transport. We have 8 principles existing in this Guangzhou BRT corridor, so if anyone would like to know more information about it, welcome to send me email. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, quiz. Just kidding. But I would like to thank you for keeping your presentation short, and I'm very, very pleased, and I'm sure that there will be more questions later and we can have more discussion for more time. Our next speaker comes from the German International Cooperation. He will speak about cities to metropolitan regions, the challenge to integrate cities and metropolitan regions, Mr. Roland Haas.
Thank you, Troy. And I can promise that my presentation is even shorter, because I don't even have a presentation, because I misunderstood. No, I didn't. That I should abstain from presentations. I'm trying to bring you some ideas closer to you, which came to me during my work in Southeast Asia. I used to work in a GIZ program, Cities, Environment and Transport, and combined clean air plans for 11 cities altogether, which we did. We did a regional strategy on sustainable transport, and we did also work with ports on sustainable port development. But I've left this program 2.5 years ago, and I'm back to GIZ head office. So, out of my experience, I made is that cities cannot anymore cope with complex projects alone. So you have to look into the neighboring cities, and you have to look into the metropolitan area. So the challenges are complex if you think of the increasing urbanization. The trend is, and we all know this, that it's estimated 70% of the world population lives in cities in future. Alone in ASEAN member states already today, we have 50% of the population living in cities. And this increasing urbanization leads to urban sprawl, of course. The rooms between the areas between cities will fill up with new dwellers. And if it's not planned, if it's not properly planned, we have a lot of problems in order to serve them with public transport, serve them with other public utilities. So these kind of agglomeration areas usually stretch over more than one city, and in some cases they even stretch over more than one province administrative boundaries. So there is an urgent need of new forms of decision making, of integration of those agglomeration areas, and there might be a need of legislation or other forms of regulation. I remember in Cebu, Philippines, there was even a law which had to pass through Parliament in order to create the metropolitan area of Cebu. Well, the areas of challenge is manifold. We have water supply systems combined with water resource management, solid waste disposal, fire emergency services, transport in particular. Traffic does not stop at urban boundaries, and public transport should not stop at urban boundaries. And then we have this big issue of air quality management. Air quality monitoring cannot be done only for one city. It has to be done in a region, in particular also when it comes to identification of sources of emissions, like when you do emission inventories, or even when you do a clean air plan. You can hardly do it for one city only. You have to integrate it in a metropolitan area. Public transport is, of course, a very important issue, which we don't want to stop buses or other bus rapid transit systems or rail systems at city boundaries. So we have to find a solution how to integrate the tariffs, so we integrate the schedule and the other services. Well, the benefits are very somehow obvious for cooperating between cities. It saves costs, it boosts capacities of local government, it improves delivery of basic services, it combats fiscal inequality, and enables better adjusted development strategies. Why does it not function so well everywhere? So there's a couple of reasons. Often it's discouraging national and provincial governments, so they are not really promoting this. They come probably from different political streams, parties, etc. There's competition. We have restrictive and non-existing legal regulations and unclear responsibilities among the cities, between the cities. There's limited human and financial capacities, and there's of course lack of local support in some cases, which means we have to involve stakeholders at a very early stage. So as I said, what needs to be done? There's only a selection of activities you can do. You can identify priority areas of cooperation, be it mobility, air quality, water supply, waste collection, and of course you have to involve at the very early stage, I said this already, different stakeholders. A second step might be to formalize cooperation and analyze the possibilities. Do we need a law? Is it enough? Is it sufficient to base the activities on the existing regulations, or do we have to develop a memorandum of understanding or other sorts of agreements between the municipalities? And of course, the stakeholder involvement relates to private sector, NGOs, provincial and other subnational government entities, national level governments and agencies, and regional authorities to involve. And of course, you have to develop a network, you have to develop a program for this kind of cooperation, to give this kind of organization, if you have to create an organization, a sort of terms of reference, a work program, so that they know what they do. And well, the GIZ, financed by German Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, as I mentioned, this program, my colleagues took over from me, and now we have a new program, a new project coming up, which is called Sustainable Mobility in Metropolitan Regions, which tries to combine those, or learn from the fact which I just mentioned of lack of cooperation, so it needs to be improved. So we want to do this kind of integration activities in 3 metropolitan regions. One is in Kanto, so it's one of our regions. Then we have the area of Phnom Penh, and a border crossing. This is a very interesting fact. Border crossing activities between Vientiane in Laos, BDR, and Nong Khai in Thailand, so the northwest border area. So we want, first of all, following the steps I mentioned before. Am I still in time?
Yeah.
We want to create adequate government structures. How can these cities work together? As I said before, is it necessary to have a legal regulation in place, or is it sufficient to have memorandum of understanding? Then this project will analyze the existing plans and identify deficiencies in the plans. Are they, as a plan, for example, a transport plan, is it comprehensive enough? And is it on top of it connected to development plans or land use plans? So this analysis needs to be done. And out of this analysis, we will, after we have identified these gaps and deficiencies, we will design a technical cooperation program for the 3 specific regions. Combined with this, we think of a capacity development, a capacity building program, and since it is a regional project for ASEAN countries, there will be definitely a regional training program being set up, which partly is based on our Train for Clean Air program, which we have set up in the first project. And we will certainly look, since it is an ASEAN program, we'll certainly look into upscaling activities to other metropolitan regions in the ASEAN member states. Hopefully, the project will start in January February next year, and it has a period of 3 years, and GIZ, or the German government, provides 3.3 million euro for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. I think our next speaker will sort of tie the first three presentations together because we've heard about urban planning or low carbon development, keeping in mind economic growth. We've looked at urban planning and transportation planning as well. And Roland has talked about new forms of cooperation and decision making and ensuring that cities that cover like regional or metropolitan areas are working together harmoniously, looking at different aspects of development. Our next speaker, Mr. Shakil Ferdowsi from the Asian Development Bank, will talk about the importance of capacity building and knowledge sharing. And I think this really speaks of what ADB does in terms of bringing all activities and efforts together and making sure that there is echoing and sharing among other stakeholders.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. This is a presentation, actually one of the technical assistance project that we are undertaking from the last October. So I'll give a little bit overview of this TA, that's what we are planning to do, and we also appreciate your suggestion and any comments that we can also improve in the process. So this TA actually is a term as strengthening knowledge and the actions for the air quality improvement. Before that, I'm just explaining the 7 operational priorities of our new strategy 2030. In fact, you can see that the air pollution is actually one of these issues coming under the 2 priorities, is making the cities more livable, because with the cities planning, the air quality is coming into the discussions, and also with the tackling the climate change, building climate and disaster resilience, and enhancing the environmental sustainability is one of our operation priorities. In addition to that, actually, if you're seeing this, the institutional capacity in the governance is also one of the priority, and also we can link actually this air quality improvement with the institutional capacities of the different institutions where we are working as an ADB with the governments and other stakeholders. And of course, you can see this links also with this poverty and the reducing the inequalities, accelerating the progress in the gender equality, because most of the women in the indoor air pollutions actually they are suffering from the air quality related issues. And of course, one is important thing is our cooperation with the different agencies and at the regional level and also at the country level. The ADB's approach to air quality management, we are actually following the 5 areas, the strengthening the knowledge base, because we thought that there is a lot of actually work is going on in the different parts of the world, and we need to actually improve our knowledge base on the air quality improvement. Promoting innovative, cost-effective and smart technologies. Technology is one of the key focus, because unless you have actually reliable technologies, alternative to actually emission reductions, actually you cannot get the results. We're also focusing on innovative financing mechanism. We need finance. Whatever the planning you do, at the end of the day, we need to implement these things. And this is one of the key areas that we are focusing. Integrated policy, institutional and regulatory reform and the infrastructure is one of the key area where we are supporting the institutions in terms of the policy reform, institutional development, and the knowledge partnership with the different organizations. The consideration for the new TA design, actually last year we completed one of the TA, and we have actually one regional workshop with the different countries who participated in that TA, and we also invited some other countries in that TA. We also invited some of the air quality professionals in that TA. So there was a recommendation on the TA, and we also find that most of the countries also requested for further technical assistance to continue their work on the technical on the air quality management. So these are some of the recommendations we have actually. One of the things is coming that they need actually clean air action plans at the city level with the clear objectives, roles and accountability. So there are some recommendations actually we have taken into consideration in designing this new TA. This TA actually just started from the last October. It will be 3 years term from October 2018 to September 2021. It has been actually $2.5 million from our ADB core budget. We have provided $0.5 million, and we also received some additional financing from our partners, like from the People's Republic of China. They have the fund, PCR fund for the ADB, which they have been provided 0.8 million. We have also Urban Trust Fund, which is supported by other development partners. So they have been supported is also 1.2 million. So in total, this TA will be 2.5 million. We are targeting actually participating city, 3 primary and 4 secondary cities. Although the air pollution challenges is more on the primary cities, but we have been also seen that if we really target the secondary cities from now, it could be better and better integration planning from the when they are actually not a highly polluted cities right now. So the 3 primary cities is the Ardenath from Mongolia, Peshawar from Pakistan, Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh. It's not yet finalized by the government, the Vietnam, so we'll select one Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh city. In the secondary cities, La Trinidad in the Philippines, Faridpur in Bangladesh, Sialkot in Pakistan, and Vinian in the Vietnam. In fact, we have also some other activities is going on in these cities. For example, in the Vinian in the Vietnam, they have already planning for the green cities development. So there is some other work is going on, so the air quality will be integrated in the process. This year will be focusing on enhancing knowledge and the capacity to develop the policy actions and technological solutions. So we are actually focusing that the technical solution is one of the most important area to really make some changes on the ground. And we also target the business skills development for air quality management through preparation of the Clean Air Action Plan. The TA actually has a 3 output. The first output will be the current air quality situation and the management practice assessed. So this is the first thing that we need to assess the current situation on the ground. What is actually through this emission inventory, source apportionment, effectiveness of management measures, mitigation potential. Then we actually plan under this TA series of roundtable and the policy dialogue with the government and the stakeholders at the city level. And then we also design the awareness program. We are not actually implementing from the TA, it's very difficult to, but we'll help the government to design an awareness program so that they can actually start working from their own resources. The output 2 will be actually the innovative, cost-effective technology and the policy options for addressing the air quality evaluated. Actually, we'll try to do actually assessment of the technologies. This TA actually will look after the experience from the China, because in China we have some investment from the ADB side, and the government has also done a lot of work on actually this technology side. So we'll try to actually look after the innovative, adaptive, and also the proven technologies. Some of the technologies has been using from the 1970s, but many of the countries actually are not using these things because this can significantly reduce the emissions, but it's still not been actually practiced in many of the countries. So we'll try to actually look at the city condition, what are the technologies will be required on those 7 cities, identify the needs for the capacity building, policy reform, and technology transfer, because we are focusing on the technology transfer. Technology is not such a thing that you can just give these things to the people and people will be using from the next day. It needs actually a technology transfer program. And also we are planning for a training program on the technology using, and also a technology fairs. This is one of the things that probably targeting this TA, that there will be a technology fair in China, so we'll be bringing the people from the government, private sector, and all other things to really see the technology, how it works, actually what is the cost, what level of the things is that is, because when you see the Alibaba, the price raises from 1 million to 10 billion or 1 million to 15 million, so we cannot decide actually what level of the technologies you require and how it will be functioning, and also some exposure visit to China. The output 3 is actually develop the caps and the associated investment estimate, because this is the most important thing, is that we are doing the caps for the short term, medium term, and the long term. And we are also estimating how much investment is required for your short term, your mid term, and the long term. And we'll do also the economic and financial analysis of this cap investment estimate, and then actually design the incentive and the financial mechanism to promote the air quality, and identify the financial sources, including the private sector, for the implementation. Because what we believe that we are not ending these things just preparing the caps, but it should be ready for investment on the project. It can be ADB funded, it can be the government funded, it can be other development partner funded, but the caps must be implemented. That is our target. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakil. Yes, he looked at his watch after he spoke, but I think it's a good presentation because it's very summarized. ADB's future activity or project in the next 3 years, and I think he highlighted a very important thing: investment. Planning is good, knowing technologies is good, knowing integration, cooperation, decision making, but if we can't translate these into action without funds or investment plans or financial plans, these plans just are plans on paper, and it's not going to be effective. Our last speaker, panelist, but it's definitely not the last, because we're going to have a hopefully vibrant conversation among the panelists and our city representatives, is Eric Zussman from the Institute for Global Environment Strategies, and he will be talking about, again, rounding it out, the co-benefits of addressing air quality and climate change.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and we'll try to keep the discussion as vibrant as possible.
Yes.
So I'm entitled my presentation, Putting Co-Benefits into Action from Theory to Practice in Asia's Cities. And I'm going to touch upon many of the points that have been covered already, and frame them a lot around our discussion of co-benefits, which is an area where my institute, IGES, does a lot of our work.
Wow.
Told you it was going to be vibrant. Okay, so for many of you in the audience, a diagram like this is quite familiar. For some it might be new, but basically this concept of co-benefits has been around for about 30 years or so. And when I first started learning about the concept, I would frequently be presented with this sort of interlocking circles and the Venn diagram, which suggests that really what you want to try to do with a lot of your development programs, actions, policies is trying to mitigate greenhouse gases, at the same time trying to achieve other development objectives, whether they be economic, environmental, or social. We could flip that diagram upside down, and some people would say climate change is co-benefit of development actions. If I had more than 7 minutes, then I would give you the full share of diagrams, but we don't, so we're going to go.
9 minutes.
Oh, like I said, if I had more than 9 minutes. Thanks, Precious. The other thing I'd like to highlight is approximately 10 years ago or so, when I started studying those types of diagrams, it also became increasingly common to see countries try to implement projects that would deliver co-benefits. And over this 10-year period, we've seen this actually spread throughout Asia. The country I think that's had the most experience with these type of projects is China, and especially with the recent institutional reforms and the promotion of the Ministry of Ecology and Environment and the assignment of the climate change agenda to that ministry. I think you'll see even more activity in China on that front. But we've also seen some activity in India. So for instance, if you look at India's Climate Change Action Plan, they talk about climate change co-benefits. There's been some local level activity in the city of Hyderabad. And then Indonesia, also some interesting demonstration projects, which I'll talk about later points in this discussion. And Japan has been supporting many of these projects, while at the same time, many of the approaches Japan took to air pollution control, because they moved really sort of up the pipe as opposed to end of the pipe, had this sort of co-benefits character, that is reducing energy use while at the same time mitigating or abating air pollution. Now the country that I'm going to focus a lot on is Indonesia, in part because we've done a lot of work there, and in part because I think it also highlights this importance of co-benefits. Is while a lot of times we focus on the linkage between directly between air pollution and climate change, that when we take this concept and apply it to different contexts, different development priorities come out, and you can look at multiple benefits, not just the sort of two air pollution and climate change benefits. And one area where we've seen some interesting activity in Indonesia is in the case of wastewater. And the reason I suggest this is an area where you can capture co-benefits is because you can reduce methane, you can reduce water pollutants like COD or BOD, and also the methane itself is a precursor for tropospheric ozone, so you can also reduce air pollution. Now, as also mentioned, when colleagues in the Ministry of Environment Japan, who we work with very closely, decided to collaborate with Indonesia. They were instructed that this wastewater issue is a huge issue in many urbanizing and peri-urbanizing areas. And so this is a demonstration project that the Ministry of Environment Japan has worked on with Jembrana Regency, which is located on Bali Island. And what they did basically is they took a look at a few different types of technologies. So one of these technologies, it's a little bit covered up over here, but it's called activated sludge technology. And so the typical way of dealing with the wastewater is through an aeration lagoon. But when you put this activated sludge technology, you can reduce a lot of the effluent and the, what we would call, I guess, local water pollution. But as you can see right here, so that reduces about, this is from like 90 to 100%. This is your percentage reduction in COD, in chemical oxygen demand. And what you can see right here is there's a reduction of about 90% or so in this local water pollution. But it doesn't do anything for your methane reduction. And so what colleagues from the Ministry of Environment Japan, collaborating with colleagues from the Ministry of Environment and Forests in Indonesia, did is they took a look at some other technologies that would either capture methane or help reduce some of the breakdown of the methane. And these were technologies that are featured up here. So the UASV stands for okay, I'm going to have to come back to that in a second. But swim bed technology is a technology that will capture some of this methane. And the USAB is the anaerobic sludge blanket technology. This will also capture some of your methane. And the important point to capture here is that you're reducing your GHGs, or in this case methane, at the same time as you're reducing your local water pollution. Now this is not only important, of course, because you can do this in a single project. So they did a demonstration project in this Jembrana Regency, but it's also important because it links very closely with the policy process. So in Indonesia, they have a system called PROPER, and this system PROPER is actually aimed at information disclosure. What they do is they rate the different companies on how they're dealing with their local pollution problems, and they share that information with the general public. And this fish processing industry, where the wastewater was coming from in that demonstration project, as you can see the red and black bars, well, this would suggest that they're actually not doing so good. So one of the ways that we can take this co-benefits analysis, this analysis of possible impacts, is to help strengthen programs that disclose this type of information and hopefully also improve compliance and enforcement with different regulations that are supposed to take care of things like wastewater. Okay, so that's one case. And the next case I'd like to go to is the case of Semarang, Indonesia. So Semarang is growing city that's located approximately an hour and a half by plane from Jakarta. And like many other cities in Indonesia, it's also introducing a BRT system. You can see the BRT system right here. This is actually work that we've done in collaboration with colleagues from AIT, as well as Diponegoro University, and also colleagues from ITDP. So, glad that you're here. What we did is initially an emissions inventory for the transportation sector, and then through a series of stakeholder consultations with colleagues in the government in Semarang, we determined what would be possible emission reduction scenarios. They decided to focus on the BRT, and in fact focusing on expanding the range and scope of the BRT, especially for parts of the city that were not getting access to the BRT. And what they discovered is by just expanding the scope and range of the BRT, they could reduce emissions in the transportation sector by about 3 to 14%, depending upon different types of pollutants. So this will give you, this is from the IVE model, and it'll give you 11 different types of pollutants. So that was quite interesting. But the following year, we wanted to think about how we can actually try to realize some of these reductions. And one of the things that came to us was that not only extending the reach and scope of the BRT was important, but also maintaining the ridership of the BRT was important. And in this context, one of the things that we found is that maintaining the ridership really meant trying to make sure that you not only aim for your climate benefits and your development benefits, but other social benefits. And for the BRT specifically, one of the key social benefits was this was a main transportation mode for many of the junior high school students. And what we also found from doing a series of interviews and surveys is that many of the junior high school students, as they make their way into high school and then start their early professional careers, they frequently move from the BRT to motorcycles. And so the BRT does not stay as popular. So one of the things we wanted to do is raise awareness of the comfort and safety of the BRT for high school students, as well as their, for junior high school students as well as their parents. And we also did like a, for instance, an art contest where they would draw pictures of the BRT and get rewards for that. So what we tried to do is integrate some of the technical analysis on the possible co-benefits with some of this awareness raising, making stronger linkages to some of the social benefits. And we think this is going to be increasingly important as we try to approach the urban development agenda. We need to think about sort of the multiple dimensions of development and how to connect them together. And so I think will help achieve benefits for obviously air quality, benefits for climate change, but also more livable and healthy cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we've heard the programs, the activities, but now we would like to call on two examples or two cities that we've worked with, and we would like to hear them share what activities they've done, what projects that they're working on to improve mainstreaming air quality management in their cities, and what the challenges are that they're currently facing and trying to address. And we can learn from them as well as the reaction from our panelists. We can learn some more, or probably respond to how to address these challenges in the future. So first to share their experience is from Kanto City, Department of Natural Resources and Environment, Ms. Kim To, together with Madam New. Sorry. Probably to focus the discussion and the conversation, we would like to pose the question, apart from sharing your experience, if you could talk about some of the priority, the transport measures that you are working on in Kanto, and how you are monitoring or determining the indicators for success in these measures that you have designed and implemented.
Good afternoon. Once again, I'm sorry for inconvenience. So I take note some the main idea. Madam Yu will help me to translate English. Trong cái kế hoạch hành động không khí sạch đó, thì chúng tôi cũng đã đề ra rất là nhiều cái giải pháp để giảm thiểu về cái không khí cho các cái nguồn về là nguồn diện, nguồn điểm và nguồn giao thông. Thì không có thời gian thì tôi xin tập trung vô cái phần về giảm thiểu về cái giao thông. Thì trong cái giao thông thì giải pháp thứ nhất là về tăng cường cái xe công cộng, đặc biệt là cái xe buýt. Về cái giải pháp thứ hai đó là áp dụng cái tiêu chuẩn về nhiên liệu xăng sạch. Và cái giải pháp thứ ba là tăng cường cái khâu kiểm định khí thải xe đang lưu hành. Và cái giải pháp thứ tư là loại bỏ các cái xe mà quá niên hạn sử dụng.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kanto City so far received two projects on air quality management. First, from Clean Air for Smaller City in ASEAN Regions project funded by GIZ, as Roland mentioned earlier. The second one is BAQ from Clean Air Asia. Under these two supports, Kanto have developed a clean air action plan. In this plan, we identify a comprehensive measure to improve air quality in the city, including the control measures for mobile, stationary, and open burning sources. However, due to the time obstacle, I would like to focus only on the measure to control the vehicular emissions.
Thì các cái giải pháp trên đó cũng đã góp phần giảm phát thải các cái khí nhà kính. Thì do đó mà chúng ta thấy được cái việc giảm luôn cái tác động của cái biến đổi khí hậu. Thì cũng trong cái dịp hội thảo này tôi cũng được nghe một cái thông tin về cái Cobenefits vào ngày 12. Cũng rất là nhiều thông tin mới để mình học hỏi về để áp dụng cho thành phố.
The measures we are implementing or we plan implementing in the future include: the first is we review the urban transport planning master plan. The second one, we improve the public urban transport, such as the public bus system. At the moment, we only can meet 1% needs of the commuter. The second measure is we apply the cleaner fuels. At the moment, in Vietnam, we apply the biofuel as an E5 gasoline, and also RON 95 Euro 4 for vehicles and vehicle emissions. We also strengthen the in-use vehicle inspection, especially the emission testings, to comply with the in-use emission standard, national in-use emission standard. We are also following on the complying on the national regulation on transport sector's emissions. We also remove the trucks and buses that over 25 years and 20 years respectively. But however, the car below 9 seats are not allowed, are not applicable for the S limitation. And during this BAQ, I attended the pre-event like the training for Cobenefits on the first day. From this training, I learned about how to mainstream the air pollution and climate change mitigation. So after this BAQ, I will share the lesson I learned from BAQ to my colleagues so that we can work together to contribute for the better air quality improvement in the city.
Thank you.
However, there is one challenge and the limitation in our city, because we are at the city level, so we are unable to quantify the emission reduction from transport sector.
Thank you. On that note, maybe we could ask reaction or comments from some of our panelists, perhaps because it was mentioned about they're already thinking about co-benefits and they are enthusiastic in bringing that home with them. If Eric could say something about what they're facing, as well as Ms. Shanshan Lee, looking at probably the urban planning that they're focusing on and the transportation as well. Some comments or tips on how to move forward in these directions. Who goes first? It's fine.
I can go first.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much for very useful comments, and also thank you for attending the training on Monday. Very nice to have you here again. And we're very happy to hear that this idea of co-benefits is interesting. I guess 2 points I would raise is, so in order to look at some of the co-benefits in your city, it would be useful to have some emissions inventory. can't 100% guarantee this, but I think some of my colleagues actually from the National Institute for Environmental Strategies in Japan, I think they might have emissions inventory for your city already. And then to look at, and that's primarily for greenhouse gases, but to look at the air pollution emissions is not so difficult. So this might be a possibility. This is first point. And then I think second point is in terms of mainstreaming this idea of co-benefits into your policies, there's two important trends that are happening. So one of them is, as I mentioned during our training, but basically many countries now have these, they call nationally determined contributions for climate change. But what's happening now is that countries are localizing these. I mean, they need to bring them down to the city level. And if you can have some co-benefits analysis ready for that process, I think it will put you in a good place with national government, and also might create opportunities for funding and resources. This is first point. And then second point is, in order to get to that point, that process, to get to that stage, I think it's also important to raise the awareness and sort of socialize some of the leadership in your city and the Environment Agency and even up to the mayor's office on this idea of multiple benefits or co-benefits. Because if you just say the word, it's not so clear, but if you can begin to educate and share some of this information, perhaps by working with this emissions inventory as something very concrete, then I think it will sensitize them to this approach and create an opportunity when this NDC process comes down to you. So those are my points. We can talk more later too, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kim. Hi.
I think I can raise 3 points in terms of transportation in your city. I understand that you are reviewing the urban master plan, so I think 8 principles of integrated urban planning and transportation can be something helpful in your city. Like we can promote walking, cycling, public transport, and we can promote a good network and also a compact high density around public transport systems. And I just heard that 100% mode share is using bus to commute. Is that right? Only 1%.
Only 1%.
So what's the major mode share for commute? Motorcycle? Private vehicles. Motorbike. Okay. So I think the policy support of sustainable transportation will be very important to support public transport and support walking and cycling for infrastructure activities and to have priorities to promote public transport and non-motorized transport. And also I think better planning and design also should embed to your project, new project, like to build a more attractive or continuous or accessible public transport and walking and cycling environment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ron.
Just to add something, as I mentioned before, Kanto was selected as one of the 3 metropolitan regions who will receive technical assistance along the lines I've just mentioned before. When it comes to emission inventories, if I'm not totally wrong, Madame No, we have an emission inventory for Kanto, including pollutants and CO2.
We have comprehensive emission inventory.
Okay. This is not based on average figures, it's based on figures on the emission inventory handbook.
This is actually quite good because there is a response of a solution right away to challenges facing our city. Thank you very much, Madam Nu and Ms. Kim. Our next sharing from the city of Santa Rosa in the Philippines, Ms. Amor Salandanan is the City Environment and Natural Resources Officer. You will hear again from Santa Rosa later, and we're very proud to be working with them. So we will be inviting you to another event where you could learn more about Santa Rosa's work. We would like to actually have you share your experience in working together, because although they're not working with other cities within the city itself, there are multiple players in addressing air quality and urban planning and climate change and et cetera, et cetera. And I think they have a good experience on how their city has worked together, their multiple departments, and worked well for them, and the results are good. So I give the mic. Let's hear it from Ms. Amor.
Hello, good afternoon. So, anyway, good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm very proud to present the initiatives in the city of Santa Rosa. It's a very dynamic city, south of Manila, about 40 kilometers south of Manila. And we have been into several development activities as well as problems associated with these development activities. So,
She worked hard on that slide.
okay, so the city of Santa Rosa is called by so many names. First, it is called the Lion City of South Luzon. Second, it is called the Investment Hub of South Luzon. Third, it is called the Little Detroit of the Philippines. Yes, mainly because we have 5 car manufacturing facilities in the area. One platinum sponsored sponsor for the BAQ2018 conference actually is from Santa Rosa. Toyota Motor Philippines is actually in Santa Rosa. So we are also called the Silicon Valley of the Philippines, mainly because we have the largest electronics and semiconductor industries. So all of these titles have actually put into the city some of its dilemma when it comes to environment. So before, we are totally an agricultural area, about 50 or 60 years ago. But now, Santa Rosa is totally an area of a built-up area. So along this line, problems on solid waste, wastewater, air quality come into place. So for solid waste, Santa Rosa actually generates about 250 metric tons of waste per day. And added to that is the problem on wastewater coming from domestic and the industrial sources. Actually, we have this data on greenhouse gas emissions accounting and inventory, which USAID has helped us way back in 2014. So if you could just see the picture on the right side, these are some of the GHG sources and their corresponding emissions given to the city of Santa Rosa. Say for industrial processes, about 54%, mainly because of the semiconductor and electronics industry. Road transportation comes in third with about 6.08% of the total emissions of the city. So basically, with all of these GHG sources, the city is contributing about 2 million tons of CO2 per year. So basically that's how the city is working for right now. So we know that it's not just air quality that we need to address. So we have come up with this banner program. We call that Project Clean Always. Always, air, land, water are yours to save, because we take into consideration all of these sectors to better manage our natural environment. So this banner campaign also is the offshoot of our very unique City of Santa Rosa Environment Code. It is a comprehensive compilation of all of the ordinances for solid waste, wastewater, air, and some institutional arrangements. So these are just some of the pictures of the policies that we have on hand. We have Land Developers Guidebook for the Santa Rosa watershed, land use changes, making land use climate sensitive with IGES. And of course, for solid waste, we have several coordinations with the academe, and of course, the city has its own centralized composting facility. So for air quality management, we have been provided by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources of this ambient air quality monitoring station, which the data we use for precious program on clean air certification. So we also made it possible for the city to adopt several green areas by doing urban agriculture. And of course, we are also promoting e-vehicles in the city. We have several of this. And we also take into consideration that stakeholders are indeed part of this major solution to our environmental problems. So we have this Environment Day celebration, and of course we have this annual Silakbo, Sikad Lakad Takbo, which actually means in English, Sikad means to bike, to run, and to walk. So what are the challenges that we face in the city? Of course, air quality management per se is not vested within the city. It's actually a mandate of the national government agency, which is the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And the function is not yet devolved to the local government units. Second challenge that we actually face, Clean Air Action Plan is not mandatory for the local government units. There are 37 mandated plans, which the local government units are mandated to submit to the national government agencies. Say, for example, the Solid Waste Management Plan, the DRRM Plan, the Local Climate Change Action Plan, Comprehensive Development and the Comprehensive Land Use Development Plan, and Comprehensive Development Plans. And of course, we also face the challenge of overlapping of oversight functions of these national government agencies, which monitor the cities. Say the DNR, the LLDA, the ILG, the Climate Change Commission, and the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board, among others. So what are we thinking of doing as a way forward? So we are furthering the Clean Air Certification Program with Clean Air Asia, of course. And we plan to formulate our own Clean Air Action Plan. We wanted to develop a transportation management plan. And of course, we wanted to develop and institutionalize air quality management policies into the existing local plans. And making these mandated plans of the LGUs to be air quality sensitive, meaning we wanted to mainstream air quality actions or programs into the other plans of the local government units. So basically that's how the City of Santa Rosa is doing when it comes to air quality management and all of these environmental management initiatives. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 47, what's one more, right? More plans, but again, as Shakil was mentioning earlier, you have all the plans, you have all the ideas, but if you don't have the investments and also the mandate, as Ms. Amor has mentioned, none of these plans could be realized and they are just sitting on your shelves. I would like to ask perhaps Alvin, also Roland, the same way you reacted to Kanto intercity cooperation and working together. And I could invite Shakil as well, and then the rest of the panel, if you could react or make comments to Ms. Amor's.
Thank you, Ms. Amor, for a very wonderful presentation. It provides us with a concrete, I would say, summary of the challenges as well as your initiatives. I have 3 points to make. The first one with regards, I guess it also relates to the funding and finance. You mentioned that the top greenhouse gas contributor with the industry is a lot of auto assembly plants there. You might look into strategic partnerships with some of these companies, particularly in terms of looking at a longer term perspective for the transportation sector. I'm kind of suspecting that at least if you take a look at the other pollutants aside from the CO2, because it's like 6% in 2014 or something, it's quite low, but I'm suspecting that the vehicles there would contribute much more in terms of the criteria air pollutants. I think that the inventory that was done during the time that it's only for greenhouse gases, man. Okay, and then so that's one, and then also, yeah, this challenge with regards to how do you say, it's like a lost child for air quality management in terms of the responsibilities. I guess probably you can look at reigniting the regional airshed management body as well. Maybe Santa Rosa could actually be lead that certain initiative. And I guess in relation to at the local level, we need to also probably look into planning for the long term in terms of structuring the personnel. So you mentioned that you're going to be looking into transportation traffic management, but I understand that Santa Rosa does not have specific personnel that are dedicated to transport planning, right? So probably going to do into the future, that might be something that might be useful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, this was exactly my point as well. There's this regional airshed management plan, what is it called, and the funds comes along with them. And I remember one of our last activities was analyzing why they're not extensively used. And I don't know what came up out of this. So this would still be an option to have a look at this and get some finance out of air quality plans. And the other thing is I like this idea of Alvin to try to get a strategic partnership with the private sector, especially I think they came under pressure, at least in Europe, as we have heard today. So they will like to take many opportunities to balance a little bit out the scratched reputation in a way. At least it should be an opportunity. On the other hand, I'm also very glad that Santa Rosa has taken up parts of our approach, and it could be one of an example of upscaling our activities in the ASEAN region, particularly in the Philippines. In Iloilo, we used to work together, and there are also some activities, follow-up activities, thanks to Noel, who is quite active on this. So I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you. I think one of the good things is that we see that the cities itself is interested to improve the situation. I think which is the most important thing. Unless there is actually the leadership, the ownership from the city, I think you cannot make the changes. I'm sure that you have a lot of plans. Actually, we can execute these things, and one of the good things is that it is becoming an industrial hub. I have also seen that GAG is coming 53% from the industry. So this is one of the sources that you can really look after the industrial options, how we can really improve these industries there. I'm sure there's options that you can improve the technologies in the industries in that case. And of course, the ADB is based on the Philippines, so I'm sure if the city is interested to, and we have a lot of city development programs, I think there's a lot of opportunities for the ADBs if you're really interested. And you can discuss with this, our Philippine Coordination Office in this regard, actually, how we can be involved in the Santa Rosa. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say? Oh, okay. No, I'm actually quite happy about the turnout on the conversation of almost one-to-one correspondence with challenges, experiences, and potential solutions. And our panelists, I think, have given a good roster of alternatives or ways to address these challenges. Again, I fail at Alvin's quiz of the 9 C's because only in memory I know that those 9 C's actually apply to addressing the solutions, because we've heard about cooperation, we've heard about emissions inventory and continuing sustainability from financing or probably even capacity building. So again, no more C's in my head, but I think if we have to go back to the beginning of the presentations, all the panels and even the examples of our cities have really showcased how they could work together, and how putting one sector in touch with the other, whether it be financing, whether it be expertise, looking from the transportation side, low carbon development, economic growth. I think it's the same agenda for all these players and the sectors. So I think we've demonstrated that there is a compatibility with all these players, maybe not 100% together, but at least bits and pieces that could apply and learn from existing interventions, and then cities could learn and expand their implementation of development activities that take into consideration cleaner air, cleaner water, and also lower carbon growth. So with that, I am so sorry that there is no time for some questions, but you can, of course, approach. We can? Huh?
5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, I think Precious has just granted us 5 minutes for a short Q&A. If you have specific questions, either to the cities or to the panelists, this is your 5 minutes. Questions, or maybe you just want a one-on-one with the panelists. I think, Roland, they can approach you after the show. So for an autograph. No, but if you have heard something that you think would be applicable to your situations, please feel free to approach the cities and the panelists after the session. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your stay at BAQ.